Now we know that God planned for Israel to feed the hungry, orphans, widows, resident aliens through the process of gleaning. But God also planned for the Israelites to take care of each other as family. When husbands or sons or brothers would die or sank into insurmountable debt, the nearest male relative, called the kinsman redeemer, had the duty and the privilege of redeeming the family to prevent enslavement, the loss of property. And the response could mean paying off a debt to reclaim someone else's property. It wasn't going to benefit them to do this. It could mean avenging an unlawful death. It could mean marrying a widow to provide an heir to carry on the deceased family name. It wouldn't even be your name that carried on. To fulfill the spirit of the law, Boaz married Ruth, redeeming the family name of her late husband. He risked his own inheritance to do this, as the redeemed land and the redeemed name would go to their firstborn son and pass down into a different family from his. Boaz proved, though, that persons of God are more concerned with doing what is good than in doing what is good for him or her. Looking out for number one is not God's plan. You got that? Looking out for number one is not God's plan. Looking out for each other because God has looked out for us first is God's plan. Our role is to care for each other because God has already cared for us. In living a life of love and loyalty, mercy and grace, Boaz united with God in this plan of caring and concern. And this was his deep joy. God's desire to live with us in close communion is moved forward as these two outsiders, Ruth and Boaz, come together. We remember that God's upper story, the great story, is to unite in fellowship with each one of us. And through these two outsiders, God moves the plan forward. The family line that continued from their son Obed down through the generations culminated in the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem. He is the one who welcomes all into the heart of God, even the outsider, for he was once an outsider himself. During his life on earth, Jesus experienced life as an outsider, the son of an unwed mother, criticized by the religious establishment, persecuted by the government, abandoned by friends, left to die a criminal's death. He understands what it's like to be an outsider. He understands how hard it is to be human. But he also knows how blessed human life is when our lives align with God's life. A life of love and loyalty, grace and mercy. God's life is the life of deep joy. Nothing else compares. And this is the life that Jesus invites us into. Now, throughout our lives, we have all experienced seasons of giving and receiving blessing. At times, we've been that desperate outsider, unloved, unwanted, rejected, desperately crying out for love, acceptance, kindness. And being an outsider in our culture is so much more than being homeless or being incarcerated. Think back over your lives, the experiences that you've had or you've witnessed, where the divorce means that suddenly married friends are keeping their distance because, divorce might be contagious. And you feel cut off and alone. Think about those times when the unemployment stretched on for months and the neighbors started whispering, "What's wrong with them? Why can't he get a job? Why isn't she doing something? What's wrong with them?" And feeling outside. All the while you're still wondering how you're going to feed your family and have some semblance of a Merry Christmas for the children. Untreated or undertreated addictions or mental illness can cause family and friends to walk away because they're done. They're tired. They can't take it anymore. Nothing's changing. And that person is cut off. Bereft of friends. Now, I'm not saying the families are cruel. They genuinely don't know what to do next. They've done everything they knew. But they feel unsupported in it. Nobody's rallied around to help them through it. And all they can do is walk away because they know they're going to lose their mind next. Then there's grandparents raising their grandchildren, listening to the folks talk about, well, what's wrong with their kid that they can't do that? And trying to navigate this whole new world, which is so different from 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago when they raised their own children, not knowing what the resources are, where to go for help, feeling alone, feeling like they're without any guidance or support. When we feel like outsiders, even within our own community, we are in need of a blessing. But you know, blessings come at a cost. To receive a blessing, we need to be in a position where we will humble ourselves enough to take it. To say, yeah, I need help. I can't do this by myself. Would you please walk with me through this? We need to be humble, to be blessed. But when we do it, we are. God has the resources. God has provision. Even when life is difficult for us and we feel like nobody understands, open yourself and God will provide exactly what you need. Be humble enough to accept it. But at other times, we're in that position to give the blessing. We're in that place where we can offer love, acceptance, and kindness to others. But we can only do that if we have fully surrendered our lives to Jesus and sacrificed our own self-interest to God's interests, to God's plan. But when we do this, when we give ourselves fully over to God's purposes, we are entering risky territory because we cannot predict where God is going to send us and what God is going to do next. It is a challenge and a risk. We don't know where we might end up. But that is the only way in which we can fully align our lives with God's life, that we can align ourselves with God's desire to bless others, to help them through the hard times. God intends to bless all the families of the earth through the nation built up by Abraham's children. We who bear the name of Christ have been adopted into that nation, and therefore it is up to us to participate with God in blessing all the families of the earth. Within our faith community is the opportunity for all to fully experience God's love, God's loyalty, God's grace, and God's mercy through our ministries. Within our family of faith, we all have the opportunity to bless and be blessed. Do you know that each month we bless hundreds of hearts inside and outside the church as we feed the hungry through Manna House, the senior food deliveries, the family food ministry? If you were here yesterday as we were distributing turkey dinners to the needy, you would have seen hundreds of families here waiting for their only opportunity to have a Thanksgiving meal, to be able to fix it for themselves in their own homes, for their children, for their loved ones. And you would have seen dozens of volunteers making sure that it happens. Do you know that over the course of a year, we bless hundreds of lives through divorce care, grief share, grief support, and grandparent support groups? People who otherwise feel cut off, cast aside, come here and feel welcomed, accepted, loved, receive encouragement, support, and sometimes direction for the next steps to take. Do you know that each month our shepherds and our Stephen ministers bless the hearts of the lonely, the suffering, the bereaved? They do it without fanfare, without attention. but lives are being changed in the process. Did you know that over the course of a year, we bless hundreds of families through Pass It On, Adopt a Child, Toy Workshop, Habitat for Humanity, Volunteers in Mission, the Welcome One Homeless Shelter, and other local outreach ministries? We have so many, I can't even name them all, or we're going to be late getting out of church again. Hundreds of lives are being touched daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, through the people of this church who realize that they have been blessed and they have the obligation, the opportunity, and the privilege of blessing others in God's name, of allowing God to work in and through them to bless others, to experience the power of God at work firsthand. But we don't even limit ourselves to Harford County, to the state of Maryland, even to the United States. We have decided to follow wherever God leads us, and we are going throughout the world to bless others. We are healing with God's help the sick in Zimbabwe, and we are building a church in Russia where nobody said it could be done. They're not like us. They don't love God. Well, we're doing it. We're doing it because God is at work in and through us and has invited us into this new and wonderful life of deep joy, of blessing. And every single one of our recipients would say thank you. But we don't do it for the thanks. Every single one of our volunteers will say, God has been to me all thanks. And I can't help but give to others in God's name. And they will tell you that the more they give, the more they receive. Because they know deep in their hearts the truth that God really does love all people and wants to be in friendship with all people. The good, the bad, the insider, the outsider, it doesn't matter to God. God wants them all. And when we realized that God even wanted us, what more could we do than to reach out of our deep joy to others? God is inviting you into this deep joy. How is it? How is it that you will show the love, the loyalty, the grace, and the mercy of God to outsiders of our community? And how is it that you will receive God's blessing through others that God sends your way in your moments of need? How is it that you will do this and come to know deep joy? I can't prescribe it for you. I wouldn't dream of being so bold. God has already told you what the next step is. But sometimes we have a hard time listening. Today, I invite you to open up your bulletin in the center and then again on the back. Look at the opportunities, the invitations that God has for you to engage in deep joy by giving of yourself to others. Would you join with me in a prayerful listening of these opportunities? Holy and gracious God, still our hearts and minds in such a way that we will clearly hear your call, your invitation to bless others, and your invitation to come receive blessing for the broken places of our lives. Guide our hearts and minds this moment. Show us what is next in our adventure with you. Lord, give courage to those who are fearful, who are afraid to completely abandon themselves to your love because they don't know what is happening next, what change it will be in their lives. Give them courage, Lord. Give them strength. Give them the power to take that step closer to you.